Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a review video for the 2021 Players Championship where Justin Thomas is your winner. Now, before I kind of get into an intro here, I first want to say you can find timestamps in the description below. This intro is going to be a little longer than usual because there is some interesting things I do want to mention. Timestamps are in the description below. Chapter mode's enabled. Hovering over the progress bar will tell you what each segment is. So you have that at your disposal. If you want to skip ahead, I would highly suggest that. If you want to know what the stats were leading into this tournament, because I know that's an important thing to some of you guys, that's going to be at the end of the video. I'm going to start out this video first with the intro and then get right into the SweetSpot DFS process, talking about buckets, salaries, all that kind of stuff, and then I'll get into the stats. So again, timestamps are in the description below. So I'm actually going to pull up the spreadsheet. We'll look at the results here. Justin Thomas won this tournament, and he was my one and done pick. I couldn't be happier, but when it came to DraftKings, I selected Rory McIlroy and Patrick Cantlay as my golfers to anchor around. Here's the reason why. Justin Thomas, if you remember a month ago, his grandfather died after Saturday's round at the Waste Management Open. He obviously was affected by that on Sunday's round. I mean, he was in a really good spot to win that tournament. And I mean, everything was kind of pointing in that direction, like he was going to take it down, in my opinion. Has a bad Sunday round. 2 weeks later is the Genesis. He plays bad there. Obviously still has the grief, the grieving process in him while playing those two tournaments. Then Tiger Woods crashes the day after Genesis ends. The next tournament's the WGC Workday. He doesn't do well there. Comes into this Players Championship and he admits that those things were on his mind during those last tournaments. Makes sense. If you guys didn't know this, here's a little fun fact. If you have a negative thought in your mind, so if you're golfing and there's something affecting you in your personal life, you're going to lose 15% of your potential. The reason being is it puts your body in this state of tension where your muscles just involuntarily tense up. And in the golf swing, that is a detriment. So the 15%, I don't know where, it was an article in Golf Digest I read back when I was in high school. So we're talking early 2000s. It still sticks with me because I'm sure most of you guys are aware that if you do have a negative thought in your mind, whether it's like a breakup or a family member dying or a pet dying or work issues or whatever, if you're trying to golf with that on your mind, you're not playing good golf. That made sense with JT. And I didn't know if he was still in that state of mind. I actually didn't even hear him say this prior to his tournament in his Wednesday presser. I'm not even sure if he said it there or if he said it Thursday or Friday, after doing well, or even Saturday. But they did talk about it on Sunday's round of golf, where it was like, yeah, JT obviously was affected. He even admitted it. Now, so that's the reason I didn't play a lot of Justin Thomas, but I didn't want to miss out on a win, so I picked him in my one and done. Now, flip it over to Rory McIlroy. McIlroy, after the Arnold Palmer, which was last week, had said, I just don't know what's going on. I just don't have that spark. Like, there's just something in me that can't get to that next gear. Should have been, a red flag right there where it's concerning. But I had flipped it in a way where it was like, well, if Rory doesn't have that spark and still finish 10th place, what's to say he can't get that spark anytime leading into this tournament and win this thing? Because I kind of fell in love with with a trend of his. If he had top 10 the week before the Players Championship in any of the tournaments he played, he always top 10, or top 12, I should say, at the Players Championship. So I was already like, I ignored it, fell in love with that trend. And then Wednesday he comes out and he goes, yeah, I've been battling a miss that's unfamiliar to me. Most of my career, I have this outside in swing. That would be my miss, is I loop the club outside and reroute it inside on the way down. Now I have this inside out motion that I don't know how to control. As someone who gives golf instruction and who analyzes golf swings, this should have been a clear red flag to just, if you need to play Rory, play him in one lineup that can win you a lot of money. Instead, I decided to ignore it again, because I think I was tunnel vision. I'm going to play Rory McIlroy no matter what. He's going to win the Players Championship or he's going to finish top 5. Like, I just had a good feeling about it. Obviously, that didn't work out. This isn't buyer's remorse because he did poorly. It's just thinking back in retrospect, the writing was on the wall. And I chose to ignore it. I actively chose to ignore it. I played 40% of Patrick Cantlay. He ended up missing the cut. He had a chance to make the cut, but he double bogeyed like one of his last 4 holes and then bogeyed the last one to really, look like he was nowhere in contention of making the cut. But he was at 1 over all the way up, like through 15 holes on Friday or 14 holes on Friday. He had hole 16 left, which is par 5. Obviously 17 and 18 can be treacherous. Obviously he must have double bogeyed one of those 3 holes and just took himself out of making the cut. With those 2 golfers not making the cut, it really hindered my lineups, but I had 2 lineups that were really close of winning winner take alls. And had I done that, I would have had a pretty decent profit. But instead, I ended up losing $25. I think I put in 40, made 15. Like, I cashed in $15. So I lost 25, net loss of 25, which was unfortunate. But the process worked wonderfully this week. And I can't wait to describe it to you guys when we get into the bucket system, the SweetSpot DFS, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically my process, whatever I do that's unique to me. Can't think of the word. Anyways, let's talk about the results. Obviously we just talked about Justin Thomas, Lee Westwood and Bryson DeChambeau. Your first place and second place guys last week. Bryson won it last week. They were in the last group at that tournament. They were in the last group of this tournament. So when we think about form coming into the Players Championship, you already know with the bucket system, I always look at top 20s the week before. That's usually a bucket that I focus on. We usually see somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers usually out of that bucket finish inside the top 20. Or no, inside the top 10, sorry. So it's no surprise that those 2 came over from the API and did well here. It's a little surprising that your first and second had a chance to be first and second at this tournament. You can see Lee Westwood finished second. He birdied hole 18 to finish solo second, made an additional $500,000 to break that tie that he was originally in with Harman and DeChambeau. Harman this week was a fantastic 6K golfer in my model. I think I had him in I want to say 14% of my lineups, which is very high for a 6K golfer. Usually I preach don't play more than 10%. But I had a lot of Brian Harman. He wasn't paired up with the right guys to take down any tournament, but he showed up, and that's all that matters to me when it comes to this whole process. Taylor Gooch played well. I think I set my max exposure to him to 6%, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Paul Casey, I set his max exposure to 20%. The model loved him. Corey Connors, I liked, but the model didn't care too much for. Charles Howell III. I watched a lot of his shots because of the Every Shot Live thing. I was recording golf shots throughout this whole thing, so when I finally get a database when I finally get a website together, I'll be able to store this on that server where you guys would be able to click on and see their preferred shot shapes. I selected 2 holes that were pretty neutral, meaning whatever a golfer was comfortable hitting, that's usually the shot they went with. So draw or a fade. I also tried grabbing a couple more holes, but some of the camera angles that the PGA Tour decided to have didn't really show you anything because they all had shot tracer with them. So you could, see basically an illustration of the golf ball in the air, of whether it was a draw or a fade. So that was awesome. But yeah, I recorded all of them. I didn't think about this until Friday. So I missed 5 golfers total, or 6 golfers total. And it's fine. Like, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. But what it'll help me do is update my database currently to what the actual shot shapes are of some of these guys I don't have data on. So that was awesome. But yeah, looking forward to putting it into a website so you guys can access. But either way, watching Charles Howell III, he didn't do anything particularly well. He played a lot of Charles Howell III golf, which was not making huge mistakes. He just got himself into more scoring opportunities than he has in his past tournaments, and obviously finished in 9th place. I mean, he played solid golf, don't get me wrong. I think he made the cut at 1 under or something like that. So obviously during the weekend, he gained 7 strokes, I guess. It's surprising to see him there. Obviously, if you've ever rostered him, he usually makes 1 birdie and 2 bogeys, the rest pars, or 2 birdies, 1 bogey, and the rest pars. He's really good on a grinded out golf course, which Thursday's round here was kind of like. We see Sergio up there. We kind of had a good feeling Sergio was going to do well. If you watch the strategy videos, I was on Sergio quite a bit. Same with John Rahm. I liked him in the 10K range. Daniel Berger kind of backdoors his way into a top 10. He was kind of irrelevant for most of the week until Sunday's round. I think he was 5 under or something like that. But yeah, put himself inside the top 10. We had 16 golfers inside the top 10. And you know the sweet spot process goes off of that top 10. This is adding 16 more people to the pool. I'm not sure what it's really going to do to the numbers, if it's going to water them down or if it's really going to enhance them more, where we can figure out which buckets are the best. But either way, 16 will be going into the process. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the winning GPP lineup versus the optimal lineup. And this week, it was the Millie Maker. I entered the Millie Maker. I had a free ticket to do so, so I took advantage of it. The winning Millie Maker lineup scored 610.5 points, used $49,100 of $50,000 on DraftKings, which is kind of remarkable. Normally, people don't leave this much money on the table. But obviously, this winner, $49,100, left $900 on the table. And he used Justin Thomas, Bryson DeChambeau, Brian Harmon, Corey Connors, Sergio Garcia, and Jason Kokrak. All golfers finishing in top 10. You know I'm always searching for golfers, for all of my golfers to be inside the top 10. I'm searching for that potential because that's usually what makes an optimal lineup. Unfortunately, this was not the optimal lineup. But it was still a hell of a lineup. The guy ended up basically anchoring all of his lineups that I saw cashing in the Millie Maker contest. He max entered it. He started with Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau. Now, obviously, you can see that was amazing. It's really changed. I was kind of thinking about this when constructing my lineups because obviously you know the optimizer. I like to use the optimizer, and I was wondering, what is the best strategy in using the optimizer? Should I lock 2 golfers and continue on, run the optimizer for the last 4 spots in each lineup, run it for X amount of times? I wasn't sure. Seeing something like this kind of reinforces that thought. Maybe that's what I should do. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter, JP Losman. We always go back and forth on strategy and stuff like that. And he's been hounding me to do this 30-30-30, or really 33-33-33. So grab a golfer, play him in 33% of your lineups. Grab another golfer, play him in 33% of your lineups. And grab someone else, someone different, and play him in 33. So those are your anchor positions. And I've done stuff like that in the past. But I really just wanted the optimizer to kind of shine through, pick the correct golfers for me. Obviously with all the buckets I go over, I want it to do that for me. But I think there's a way to do it by locking in golfers. Obviously I give that function. And by the way, for all those that got the optimizer this week, I want to know your opinion on it. Shoot me an email or write it, in the comments of this video, or write it in the comments of the video, where you ended up seeing it and asking for it. Doesn't matter. I want to know your opinion on it. What would you like improved with it? That kind of thing. But yeah, I think locking in 2 guys is, to me, the way to go. And here is a thought that I'm going to do. Oh, by the way, well, hold on. I'm going to tell you what this thought is first, and then I'm going to go into the optimal versus the GPP. I'm sorry for sidetracking, but what I intend to do going forward, I knew, looking at the buckets, you know what? Scratch that. I'm going to talk about in the buckets. We're going to finish this first. We're going to go over the GPP and the optimal first. So bear with me. We will talk about this. I can actually tell you with this. Just jumble brain right now. What I'm going to intend to do, your last week 1 golfers were golfers who did not play the week before. Your last week 2 golfers were golfers who finished top 20. This is probably the best way to anchor your lineups. Obviously, we knew something like this was going to happen. We're going to find one of them. Why not just start, your top guys that way? So if I were to sort by salary and look at everyone who did not play, obviously I have a pretty large selection of golfers here at the top. I don't when it comes to top 20s. Rory obviously missed the cut. Bryson, he made the cut. He won the tournament last week. Or I'm sorry. Rory finished 10th, missed the cut this week. Bryson finished first the week before and finished 3rd at this tournament. Of all guys, basically 9K and above, those are your only 2 top 20s from last week. To me, it's smart to anchor on those lineups. And I honestly, if I'm going to miss out on 1, I don't mind missing out on 2. So I would pair Rory and Patrick Cantlay. I mean, they were my favorite golfers to begin with. Pairing those guys up, to me, awesome. Build out my lineups that way, and then grab 2 more guys. Obviously, Bryson's going to be the next guy. Who's going to be the one after that? Who knows? Maybe I don't get on Justin Thomas. Maybe I'm like, I need a 10K guy. If I went with Jon Rahm, that's okay. Obviously, I miss out on JT not winning, but if I went with Jon Rahm here or whatever, it's not going to be terrible. Likewise, I mean, I think it's probably going to go down to like salary construction. Obviously, you can see Cantlay's 92 and 10.6 equals 19.8, so 20,000. These guys together equals 19.6. Pretty darn close to the same. Maybe I would have gone on these guys. I don't know. And then maybe I do like a DJ and a Bryson lineup or something, or a DJ and then somebody down here like Spieth or Matsuyama or Paul Casey. And go that route. I don't know. Something I'm thinking about. Okay. Optimal lineup, Millie Maker. I told you what the Millie Maker lineup was. JT, Bryson, Brian Harman, Corey Connors, Jason Kokrak, Sergio Garcia. It scored 610.5 points, 49,100. Optimal lineup scored 646, 49,100, or 49,600. And I'll tell you why. If we sort by DraftKings points, you can see top, bottom. Oh, I didn't even mark them, what they were. But if we grab these 6 golfers right here, that's going to equal 646. And it uses 49,100. Well, we can swap out Taylor Gooch for Sergio Garcia, who's 75, and that switches the overall to 49,600 because they both scored the same amount of points. So your optimal lineup, 646. Millie Maker winning lineup, 610. So 36 points was in between. In past how I've talked about creating lineups and not leaving that much money on the table because it really doesn't matter. I think it's better to try to figure out a lineup that's closer to 50,000 without really leaving a lot of money on the table. Would any of these lineups beat 610.5? Of course, I figured it out already. If we go ahead and take these 5 golfers, Casey, Harman, DeChambeau, Westwood, and Thomas, and we add someone who's a little bit more expensive, I mean, Sergio's the one, right? 49. You'd be using up 49,600. So 400 on the table is not bad. But let's say maybe not him. We could go to Jason Kokrak. This still scores 637.5 points. And it uses 49,800. You can obviously see the bump up from Sergio, $200. So we're only leaving $200 on the table, and this would have beat the Millie Maker winning lineup. So again, we don't necessarily have to leave money on the table. Will Zalatoris was another favorite golfer of mine, and he would have done the trick too. 49,700. You know, this would have scored you 634.5. So there were potential lineups that we could have done to beat that winning Millie Maker lineup. Obviously, again, he got all of his golfers inside the top 10. Again, amazing. That's how, that's how you want to be building your lineups, trying to get all 6 golfers inside the top 10. So awesome. We could have easily beaten it. If we go to the 2021 DK page, I have the results up right here. Unfortunately, I don't have them colored the way that they are there on that 2021. Let's see. It's Thomas, DeChambeau, Harmon, Connors, Garcia, Kokrak. I know these ones for sure. There's Garcia. And what was it? Connors, I think, right? Yes. Okay, so these were your golfers here. Last week 1, last week 2, last week 2, last week 1, last week 2, last week 1. This is kind of how I went with. Usually all these color schemes are based off the last year bucket score because it's a little bit more important than the last week bucket score. But you can see every one of these golfers either didn't play the week before or finished inside the top 20. And again, I can confirm that with the buckets. Here is the table that I grabbed that from. Last week bucket 2s are 1 to 20. Last week bucket 1s are did not plays. That's obviously we can grab this information, look here, and build our lineups that way. Now, if we were to do that alternate lineup that I was talking about, let's see, who did we grab? I forgot already. It had been Paul Casey. It had been these 5, Paul Casey, and then Kokrak, right? So instead of Corey Connors, it would be Paul Casey? No, we wouldn't have Sergio. We would need Corey Connors. Getting confused here. Casey, Harmon, DeChambeau. Oh, Westwood. Sorry. Duh. So Westwood, not Corey Connors. It'd be all last week 1s and 2s again. Easy way to create your lineups that way. If we got rid of all of the other golfers that aren't last week 1s or 2s, this leaves us with a pool of 67 golfers. 67 out of 154. You could probably figure out what are your better lineups. Obviously a lot of these 6K golfers down here, you could probably just cut because you don't need a lot of them. Really, if you were to cut 66 and under, you'd be taking out 16 more golfers. So now we would have a pool of 52 golfers to select from. And if we were only selecting from these guys, you'd only have 15 who didn't make the cut, which is, those are pretty good numbers. And if you're making 100 lineups, you're probably going to get on the right selection of golfers this way. So, that's one way to do it. It's probably not the easiest way. It's probably better said than done, basically. But yeah, the last week buckets would have been great. And I guess this is a good time to transition into all of the buckets. The one big thing that I always cover every single week is looking at only the top 10 golfers. So if we just select everyone who finished, the 16 golfers who finished inside the top 10, and we look at all the buckets, I usually harp on don't pick a golfer who has more than 2 bucket scores, 5 or greater. Victor Perez is the only guy that doesn't meet that criteria. Everybody else has less than 1 bucket that's a 5. or 1 bucket or less. And really, if we take out Charles Howell III and Victor Perez, so these 2 guys right here, let's see if I can get rid of them somehow. Right. If we just select these guys, nobody has a bucket score of 5 or greater. Everyone is underneath, 4 and under, which is it's a big deal to me. It shows that, if we follow bucket scores properly, we can get rid of some of this riffraff. So let's go ahead. Let's take away 5s and 6s out of everything. See how many people this brings us down to. 5 and 6s are gone. When I count, we're down to 74 golfers. If we also then get rid of 4s and 3s, say, because obviously we just did that in the previous one and it's just down to 1s and 2s. Now we're down to 43 golfers in our player pool. And then if we also get rid of anyone who is under 6,600 and below, now we're down to 30 golfers in our pool. And we had a good opportunity to do this. You can obviously see the guy who won the Millie Maker had 6 of these golfers. And of course, our optimal lineup is up there as well. I think it was, right? It's either Gooch or Gooch or Garcia. Garcia's up there, but not Taylor Gooch, which is fine. So either way, man, we could have selected something easy like this. 30 golfers that way, even if I allow 3s and 4s, which it's not that big of a deal to me. 47. If I were to get rid of some of these 4s, because usually strokes gained bucket 4s I don't care for, I'm down to 33 that way. Obviously, I'm going to include it because that's your first and second place are 4s, and I don't mind playing strokes gained bucket 4 golfers. But obviously, if I'm selecting 2, I can get rid of some of the other guys that are down here. Yeah, there's quite a bit. Oh, Justin Rose is down here. Whatever. So yeah, the process this week was fantastic. Had we, kind of followed those buckets and brought it to the optimizer, it would have been dead on, spot on. Yeah, I don't think we really need to talk about the bucket system or any of the buckets here. But obviously, this is what I reference every strategy video, looking at your top ranked guys for last week, and of course, course history and recent form. So you can see who our course history 1s are, what the 2s are. This is the finishing range, or the average finishing range. This is what would consist of course history. So if they had a 40th to 60th average finishing position at this tournament, that was your bucket 1s. And obviously, if we were to go back to that 2021 page, look at how many strokes gained or course history bucket 1 golfers are inside the top 10. It's amazing, right? 40 to 60 isn't a number that most of us think about when it comes to, I want someone that has decent course history here. Well, what does that mean? Do you pick 6 golfers that have under 40 or under 30? Or do you, fluctuate? Maybe you just pick 3 golfers that have under 30. Well, maybe that's not the best way. If you were to do that, and we look at buckets, course history bucket your bucket 2 was 20 to 40, but your bucket 6, your 6th ranked bucket was that 1 to 20. How many 6s did we see inside the top 10? 0. You see 0, 1 to 20. So that's why, again, coming here, looking, watching the strategy video, seeing what the best buckets are, should give you an understanding of what you should really care about and what you shouldn't. I mean that by, don't grab the best golfers in each of those categories. It doesn't work out that way when trying to build an optimal lineup. The bucket system helps you understand that. It gives you the frequency of how certain finishing positions finish at this tournament. in these stats: strokes gained, course history, recent form, last year and last week. So again, I analyze all that stuff. I give it a number, give it a rank, and tell you what you should play and what you shouldn't play. So yeah, again, process was fantastic this week. I'm very, very much happy about it. Before we actually get into each stat, I want to cover the fifth bucket, which is strokes gained bucket. Obviously, we got rid of 5s and 6s throughout everything. I'm just going to reopen it so we can see stats when we get back to this. But strokes gained buckets, what do those consist of? Why do we put those in buckets? The biggest reason why I do it is I've analyzed week in, week out every tournament for this year and have noticed with not only the tournament that it's being played, that this year's tournament, but last year's tournament, the year before that, and the year before that, where I've actually compiled strokes gained stats. I've noticed more often than not, off the tee, positive off the tee matters a lot. And then if it's not, positive off the tee is one thing, putting is another. Those are your two most important stats when finding the top 10. Approach, that is all over the place, of top 10 golfers. But usually you'll find most of your top 10 golfers with positive strokes off the tee or strokes gained off the tee and positive strokes gained putting, usually. And if not that, it's positive off the tee, negative putting. And if it's not that, it's negative off the tee, positive putting, and then it's negative off the tee, negative putting. Approach is it fluctuates too much. That is more volatile than the stats I just named to you. And so I put these combinations together. Everything positive here, that's bucket 1 for strokes gained. Bucket 2, positive off the tee, positive putting. Bucket 3, positive off the tee, negative putting. So you can see my positive off the tees rank 1, 2, 3. Then we get into our negative off the tees, but first positive putting. That's bucket 4. Negative off the tee, negative putting. That's bucket 5. And bucket 6 are golfers who have not played enough PGA Tour events that garner strokes gained stats. So you can see we have 3 of them here. And you can see no one finished inside the top 20. This is 3 weeks in a row that this has happened. You can just easily cross these golfers out. Perfect. Bucket 5 right here. How crazy is that? Of this bucket, I scroll down and I count 23 golfers. Of the 23, only 5 finished or made the cut. No one finished inside the top 20. Tommy Fleetwood, a favorite golfer. I played him in more lineups than I should have. I should have seen this strokes gained bucket 5 and just been like, okay, I'm just going to cross that out like right away. Or really minimize the ownership when it comes to that. No one else really stands out to me when it comes to that bucket. I mean, it was really just Tommy Fleetwood. Before we talk about strokes gained bucket 4, because obviously that's where first and second place is, I want you to just look at something. I always say this every single week. Left to right, look at how many top 20 finishes are in these first buckets on the left going over to the right. And I always say this every single week. It's step ladders. It goes more from left to right. And it does it in a step fashion. Now, we actually have a tie with bucket 1 and bucket 2. And we have a tie with bucket 3 and bucket 4 with the most golfers inside the top 10. Obviously, you can see bucket 1 and bucket 2. Bucket 1 and bucket 2 consist of the 16 top 10 golfers. Okay, sorry. Top 10. We're looking at top 10. Of the 16 top 10 golfers, 10 of them lie in these 2 buckets. 10. Over 50% in those 2 buckets. Looking at the other 2, obviously you can kind of tell we have 6 golfers, the remaining 6. And 3 in bucket 3, 3 in bucket 4. I also have kind of rules up at the top here. Pick 1 to 3. Pick 1 to 3. Pick 1 to 3 for your first 3. And then it goes down quite a bit. This is more volatile. I can't guarantee someone's going to finish inside the top 10 for strokes gained bucket 4 or strokes gained bucket 5. So that's why I have 0 to 2. Now, I would never have chosen Victor Perez, but look at that. Justin Thomas, Lee Westwood. Yeah, They were on the optimal lineup. Boom, there they are. Sergio Garcia, we could have put in the optimal lineup, so we'll pick one from this bucket. Let's see. We know that Paul Casey was in the optimal lineup. Pretty sure, right? Man, the memory is just, it's not there. Westwood, DeChambeau, Harman, Casey, and Gooch or Garcia. Yeah. Okay. Going back to strokes in buckets. So Harman, DeChambeau. Obviously, we could have had Gooch if we wanted. Let's see, we're replacing him with Jason Kokrak. So there are your 6 golfers right there in the optimal lineup. If it's not Jason Kokrak, then it's Taylor Gooch. Yeah, it's that 600 difference. Yep. Okay. No, it's not. We're wrong here. All right. These guys, or it's Gooch or Garcia. So it's Casey, Harman, DeChambeau, Westwood. Casey, Harman, DeChambeau, Garcia. Okay, so there. That's the 6 that you see up there. We could also substitute him for Kokrak. Doesn't matter. Or we can go to Gooch over here. So really, we could almost extend this to pick 1 to 4 because 4 of them are right there. But 3, in my opinion. Obviously, we can't pick 1 to 3 on each of these for the optimal lineup. But, I mean, can we still win money if we don't? So let's get rid of Paul Casey and Kokrak and Garcia because that would technically work, right? Can that win money? So we'd go like this. Bryson, Harman, Kokrak. Let's go that way. Bryson, Harman, Kokrak. Garcia, Thomas, Westwood. Garcia, Thomas, Westwood. Westwood, JT, Garcia. 627. We are winning the Millie Maker. So following those rules still works, which is fantastic. Wasn't sure. Didn't look at it before even looking into it right there. But if we follow the rules still, we win money. So again, process, dynamite. From here, let's just look at all the stats and see how it... Actually, no. I'm just going to briefly brush up on this. This wasn't that important, but salaries, looking at it this week, really difficult to tell. Like, your top guys, if there was any kind of prelude to tell us that the top guys of this tournament weren't going to do the greatest, this might work. Because 28% of 11K and above golfers finish inside the top 10. That's not good when the total is 7. That means what? 2 golfers out of 7 finish inside the top 10. Same goes with 2 guys, 10K and above, finish inside the top 10. If we look at your 2021 leaderboard, then that's just DraftKings, obviously. I don't see a top 10 golfer or a 10K and above golfer unless I sort it this way. And obviously, John Rahm, 10-9. He's your only 10K golfer who made the top 10. I mean, JT's so close, 9,900, but he's not considered 10K and above when it comes to analyzing these stats. So when we look again at the salaries, this will go up a little bit. This is going to come down, and then this will obviously go up because we had 2 guys in the 9K range. So, I mean, this didn't look good to begin with, 9K and above. You can see what the salaries are right there. These were the historical ones the last 3 years at the Players' Championship. So, yeah, 9,200 was the only one. Obviously, we're going to add 2 more to that group, but your biggest group would have been 6K and 7K. And if we look, 7Ks again dominate. There's a 6, 7, another 6, 7, another 6, 7. We kind of already knew 7Ks and 6Ks were going to dominate this. And for that guy who won the Millie Maker, 49,100, obviously 6K, 7K, 7K, 7K. If he followed that same logic, I mean, it was there. And if you looked at past optimal lineups, that was also there. 2019, optimal lineup had 7-1, 6-8, 6-1, 6-9. So a couple 6K golfers there. Well, more than a couple, a few. All 7K guys here. The realistic lineup I have over here is 49,100. What was it in 2019? Optimal lineup was 49,100. Weird theme, huh? 3 years in a row. Now 2018, I had 49-1 as the realistic lineup, because how does anyone leave $2,300 on the table? No one does. So obviously looking at this, yeah, 49,100. And I guess realistic lineup would have been 49,007, because the optimal 41, no one's leaving that much money. So either way, this one still, it's dominated by 6 and 7K golfers. You know, obviously if I were to use some kind of 6Ks, 7Ks, again, still same thing applied for this tournament this week. 7 and 6K golfers dominated once again. Okay, let's go ahead, get into all the stats. And I'm going to move left to right. I'm going to hide all of these columns. Actually, I'm going to talk about the SweetSpot score. So SweetSpot score was pretty good too. I'm going to select all salaries. I'm not sure why I forgot why I filtered that out. But looking at the SweetSpot score, seeing this, basically all your top 10 right here, only these two guys fell outside the top 100. And this is of the field. There's 154 golfers in this field. Shane Lowry, 97th. Don't really care for that. Gooch, 88th. I don't care for that. Everybody else is ranked 58th or better inside the top 10, which was awesome. That's good. That's eliminated a 2/3 of the field. If I were to go ahead and sort this from top to bottom, not what I want to see. Like, there are way too many missed cuts. I have a total of 7 missed cuts and only 6 top 20s, and they actually are top 10s. So not the greatest showing of guys at the top, but I guess if we cut out anything above top 10, or I mean not top 10, but 10K and above, since we know that's kind of a bugaboo, it helps a little bit. It doesn't help all that much. I think we lose one. 6. Yeah, we still have more missed cuts, so it doesn't really help all that much. But either way, when it comes to top 10, top 20 finishes, the scores were great. I enjoy seeing that. That helps out a lot, because this is what the optimizer looks at. Really, it looks at the full score, not this. This is more of a rank over on the left side. So the lower the score here, the better. But it's looking at a higher score in a different column and ranking it based off of that. So yeah, did pretty well. I'm pretty content with it. Now let's go ahead and get into the top stats for this tournament. I'm also going to negate that. Let's look at tee time pairings. Hopefully you guys are following along when it comes to the timestamps down below, because I kind of flutterbrain this. I don't have a script, let's put it that way. So I'm just going by what I see left to right. And first of all, let's talk about tee time pairings. So when it comes to tee time pairings, I have golfers highlighted over here if they're better than field average when it comes to DraftKings points, scoring average, or a combination of the two. If they're better than field average in both of those, then they're highlighted a darker green. Lighter green is just they're better than field average when it comes to DraftKings points. Yellow means they're better than average when it comes to scoring average. So you can see a bunch of these guys are highlighted. Now, the colors over here mean everybody in their group, their playing group on Thursday and Friday, had any one of those 3 combinations for being better than field average. It's good to see this many golfers here being colored, being highlighted. We have 9 total. Actually, if I'm being honest, that's 10 inside the top 20 of this tournament that had everybody in their group better than field average with those two scoring points. Which is now kind of how I'm looking at lineups or lineup creation. I'm not necessarily picking golfers together, but if you were to do that, if we look, there's two guys that are paired up together, Daniel Berger and Shane Lowry, that finished inside the top 10 that were paired up together Thursday, Friday. I don't think I see anything else that were paired up together. And that's the reason why I no longer look at it, because I don't necessarily see pairs together anymore inside the top 10. I do see a lot of golfers who had all three golfers, I mean, basically this being colored over here on the side, that to me is a better indication of success. And I guess, how do I do this because I have three colors. Let's just go with white. The guys that didn't necessarily have anyone in their playing group not all three of their playing group were better than field average. I just want to look at missed cuts, because this is what's going to really change the perspective for me. So that's 66 golfers missed the cut that were not paired with two other golfers that were also better than field average. Maybe they weren't, but obviously if they're white over here, it means they didn't have a full group that were better than field average. I guess if we were to look at the dark green color, that means these were all good golfers. We still see missed cuts. 6 out of 15. And 11 out of 25 for this one. So it was mixed. I guess I don't really have, looking over that wasn't that big of a deal, but seeing a lot of these guys inside the top 20 were in groups that were slated to be hot, basically, is how I would look at it. Interesting to see. All right, let's go ahead and now look at top stats for basically all the important ones. Course history, top to bottom. Your best course history golfers, how well did they do? Well, most of them missed the cut, as you can see right here in this column. 85 is a missed cut. Now think about it, it should be 86. Thinking of a restaurant terminology, if something's 86, it means they're cut off the menu. Yeah, I like 85, but I don't know. I might do it because it sounds good. Course history, coming in with the best course history wasn't that big of a deal. Of the top 20 guys of course history, most of them missed the cut. We do have a winner. We do have a third place. We actually have three guys that were in the optimal lineup here. So picking a couple of them, not terrible. But all of them, yeah, not the greatest. It didn't matter. Again, you had more missed cuts than top 20s. Overall bent grass, the guys with the best bent grass. Now I chose bent grass because I wasn't exactly sure what the overseed was. Bent grass doesn't look to be the key. Let's put it that way. If we sort by position and just look, it's not terrible. I mean, field average is 52.58. Most guys are under that 52.58, so better than field average. Another thing I usually look at is top 10 bent percentage. When it comes to the guys inside the top 10, I want this number to be greater than 5. And really only one guy or two guys don't achieve that, and that's Taylor Gooch and Shane Lowry. That's pretty good in my opinion. Again, there's 152 golfers total in this field with the withdrawals that happened prior to the tournament. If I go ahead and get rid of 0, 2, 3, and 4%, that drops it down to 122 golfers. So not a huge drop. Only 30 golfers dropped from that, but dropping those 30 golfers still would give us a lower player pool to select from. Since bent didn't really show up that great, I don't anticipate 2021 bent looking that good. Again, this was just more of a guess. The mix was bent and POA, so perhaps I should have went with POA and see what it looked like, but really those greens didn't look like POA whatsoever. They didn't look like they were being affected the same way that POA does, so I'm not going with POA. I would have to come up with my own configuration of what I'd want to do with that. Overall die stats, we have more missed cuts than top 10s, top 20s, which is insane. Like, usually good Pete Dye golfers play well. McIlroy, that's why I selected him. He was one of the best Pete Dye golfers at this tournament, which is insane. Now, again, with that top 5%, does that still show up? Oh, yeah. Maybe not these guys down here that were in 9th place, but I don't care. Everyone else inside this top 10 had 5% or greater. I guess Jason Kokrak didn't. That's still a good number. 11 out of the 16 guys, still pretty good. Yeah, I think in the future what I'm going to do is really just hone down on that kind of stuff. And 2020 die didn't do that great. Wasn't that great to look at. I can look at last week's scoring stats for you guys, just for the top 20. You guys can see on the screen. This is just, again, from last week. It's not that, I don't know. It's difficult to determine because it's all raw numbers. It's not averaged based off of rounds of golf. Not for last week. It's just your raw totals. So really only Shane Lowry had a negative strokes gained total number, but everyone else pretty decent. I don't care. I'm not looking really too much at that. Now, when it comes to recent form, guys coming in with the best recent form, we have more miscuts than we have top 20s. You know, just looking at the 85s compared to the greens or the dark reds to the light greens. Yeah. So if you were targeting just golfers with good recent form, probably not the best way to go about it. Again, looking at the bucket system, I can pull it up. Looking at recent form buckets. So if are we here? Oh, I didn't, oh yeah, never mind. It's right here. Your best recent form was bucket 4. A min max of 0 to 4. So, I mean, if you were following me, you knew that wasn't a bucket that you really wanted to be focusing on. So not a bucket that was worth going for. And you can see you had more missed cuts than you had top 10, top 20s. But now we're going to add 4 golfers to that mix. Which it is what it is. Like, not that big of a deal to me. When you have 16 golfers inside the top 10, something like that's bound to happen. Now, looking at top down, if we're looking at your strokes gained, recent weeks, last 7 weeks, see a lot of positives inside the top 10. The only negatives would be Charles Hall III, Victor Perez, and Shane Lowry. This is strokes gained total. So obviously they're coming in with good strokes gained stats. And obviously that's a mix of, anything from good off the tee to good approach. Seeing the strokes gained total kind of gives you an idea of how well they're coming into this tournament. So yeah, pretty good. But really looking at these stats from left to right, if we're looking at DraftKings points coming into this on average for season long, it's actually a pretty good mix of missed cuts and top 20s. So if you were just doing that, you could probably come up, with a decent lineup. Scoring average, if we sort from best to worst, not really anything to look at. Rounds under 70 from top to bottom, we find quite a bit of top 20s, more so than missed cuts. Actually, it's a tie, 7 and 7. This one would be counted too. So more missed cuts there. That wasn't that big of a deal. And then obviously we already went through strokes gained stats. So again, if we're looking, I already put them in buckets. If we're looking at off the tee, JT and Lee Westwood were 4s, negative off the tee plus positive putting. Everybody else, minus Victor Perez, had positive off the tee. Again, to me, it's a better stat to go by off the tee. And really, if you think about it, it gives you more confidence hitting the ball better off the tee than, say, hitting your iron shots closer. Plus, good approach numbers could be skewed by having poor poor drives, and you're able to hit a ball on the green close enough. Now, and I'm not saying like super close, like 5 feet. I'm talking like 8, 9, 10 feet from a bad lie not a bad lie, but in the rough from a long distance away. Because again, strokes gained is only looking at lie and distance. So even if you were in the bunker from 200 yards away, that's worse than being in the rough. but if you put it on the green within 15 feet, you're going to have positive approach numbers. I mean, it's still a difficult shot, but some of these guys are just that good now, where it's not that big, you know. So approach, that fluctuates a little bit more. Still, majority of these guys had positive approach numbers. But to me, again, it's much easier going by off the tee and putting. And weirdly enough, most of these guys had positive putting. I've highlighted everybody who has positive putting. So that was season-long stats coming into this. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I don't really need to talk too much more about anything. I guess there's some ancillary stats here. Did driving distance matter at this golf course? This is top down. Obviously Bryson, third place, but he's just a good golfer in general. Driving accuracy, did that matter? Only 2 guys inside the top 20, so nope. How about good drive percentage? People who make smart decisions. 2 guys in the optimal lineup, or no. Well, I can't tell if they're in the optimal lineup. Garcia could have been, Connors was not, but still, of your GPP winning lineup, 2 of them were there. So good drive percentage, not the greatest. How about bogey avoidance? Not even a chance. Like, it was not bogey avoidance. This was one of the numbers that made up of the SweetSpot score. How about birdie or better? Yeah, but no, because look at all the missed cuts. Not the greatest. Total amount of birdies. Is that even a no? Total amount of eagles. Is that even a thing? Kind of. I mean, not really, but there's not conclusive evidence looking at any of those stats. And there wasn't really conclusive evidence if I were to tell you, you know, looking at your best off the tee guys, you know, all the way down. Here's your best off the tee stats for season long. We had 5 guys inside the top 20. Everyone else basically missed the cut. How about best approach guys? Actually, this one kind of sticks a little because we have a lot of guys here inside the top 10. They match the amount of missed cuts. How about around the green? No, not around the green. Best putters? No, not best putters. But having positive putting did help. Obviously, you saw that. So you can see top down, your top 20 guys in each of these stats, you can't go by that. You have to mix it up. And I know when you look at these numbers, it can get dizzying and it might be like, why? I'm not trying to figure, like, I want positive putting guys, but I mean, when you're trying to compare positive putting guys, so like Xander, 0.867 or 0.864, well, that's better than, where's another 10K guy up here? I mean, if you're trying to determine between Xander and, say, McIlroy, 0.263, that's terrible. I would never, you know, play like a McIlroy at that number for putting. Like, Xander's just a much better putter, and I would trust that more. Well, you would have lost on both of them. If you were to instead look at just positive putting in general, like, well, Justin Thomas, 0.348. Like, oh, he wasn't 10K, I'm sorry. John Rahm, negative putting. He's the only 10K and above guy, and that's kind of what I was trying to compare, but that was kind of a stupid comparison. But either way, when you're looking at best putters, I guess the better way to do this is grab a 7K guy. Louis Oosthuizen. Let's select him. I would rather play Louis than, let's see. I'm trying to find someone similar that finished better than him, like in the same salary range. Well, let's say it was a choice between Louis at 79 or Palmer at 73. Like, Louis has better putting stats. I'm going to select him over Ryan Palmer. Or not even so much Ryan Palmer. Why don't we go down into the negative range and find a 7K guy down here? Sergio Garcia, perfect. Really good comps here. Sergio or Louis? If you're going by putting stats alone, you'd pick Louis all day, every day. But knowing you need to find a negative putter with positive off the tee, maybe Sergio is your guy. You can see he's surrounded by a bunch of 6K guys here. But I mean, who would you rather have? Sergio or Bubba? Like, I'm not trusting Bubba. I would much rather have Sergio. I think he has a better course history here. Oh yeah, by far. Almost double of what Bubba is. But yeah, that's why I mean, looking top down on every stat, it just, for me, it disappoints me to hear most of the guys in the industry talk about you need to find the best ball strikers. Now, some people will disagree, or some people will say what ball striking is to them. But if we're looking at strokes gained ball striking, the only way to do it is off the tee and approach. Well, your two guys at the top, probably one of your worst, statistical right now, season long ball strikers. Obviously, we know JT is a good ball striker. We know Lee Westwood has always been good with his irons. But if we're looking at stats like that, that doesn't look that great. Even if we're looking at like a Taylor Gooch, that doesn't look that great. Nor does Brian Harman. Like, those don't look great. You combine them together. So 0.2. Like, that doesn't look good. Sure, DeChambeau, that looks really good. That's strokes gained ball striking off the tee and approach. There's going to be better numbers than that if we're looking, Bryson, I guess Sergio. Hey, there you go. Rory's up there. Although that's not the greatest of numbers. I wonder if I do a conditional on this. Greater than, say, 0.5? So we're looking at approach better than 0.5. That, for whatever reason, didn't work out. How not? Oh, less, what? Greater than. Yeah. I mean, these are basically your best. I mean, I sorted by off the tee, high. We're looking at high approach stats. You have more missed cuts than you do top 20s. So even looking at your best ball strikers at this tournament doesn't add up. If we go ahead and do approach and do the same thing and just filter by condition, looking at, the same kind of stats, 0.5. We don't have a lot, but still more missed cuts than we do find top 20s. Which just goes to show you not one iteration is better than another. You need to mix them up. You need variety. You need a min-max. You need to know those things. That's what the bucket system helps with. So, review video went an hour long. There was a little bit of jumbledness in there, which I apologize. I should probably look more at a script when doing this, going over the ground bases where I'm going to go next. A lot of it to me just feels like I know where I'm going to go next after the piece that I'm just talking about, because a lot of my stuff goes left to right in the spreadsheet. So I'll say this. For those that have stuck around this far, or maybe perhaps you just wanted to hear what the outro was, because usually giveaways are given in the outro. Man, I wish I would have said something earlier. But either way, if you've made it this far, I hope you've seen it. If you want the optimizer for the Honda Classic, you gotta like it. You gotta put a comment in the section. And if you're on YouTube only, those are your two criteria. And then you have to email me, which my email is in the description of this video. I will send you the optimizer for the Honda Classic once I finish it. And just a disclaimer, you need to have the full version of Microsoft Excel. It utilizes a solver application, an add-in, and if you don't have Excel, you can't access that solver. So it won't work. The optimizer part won't work. For those on Twitter, what you need to do is like this, retweet the video, obviously the post that I'm going to be putting on Twitter, and I will contact you and give you the optimizer for the Honda Classic. It is not completed. The optimizer is not a finished product. It is very much still in beta. I even say that in the intro of that spreadsheet. But I have enough tools in that optimizer to help you create lineups however you want. And you can automate this to run you 100 lineups, 200 lineups. It goes up to 200. Forgot to mention that. But you can create up to 200 lineups on this thing, save it, and import it into DraftKings. So a lot of your heavy work is already there. Or if you just want to see what the optimizer will give you for 10 lineups and you're one of those that likes to just manually create them, handwrite them or, click each name, you can do that with the optimizer. Plus, part of the optimizer has the spreadsheet on it. So when we look at this, I have the optimizer up. When we look at the dream sheet, it has everything that we just went over. All of the pieces of information that we talk about. So you can obviously follow along with the video. You'll have the optimizer, which will have this dream sheet on there. Again, if you were to create a lineup, save it, it shows up right here. All you have to do is just copy these 6 golfers into your lineup, or I should say your downloaded lineup sheet from DraftKings, and put it in whatever contest you want. Perfect. I also have a contest page that I'm not sure if many of you guys are aware of. I didn't really talk about this, but again, if I continue to run this optimizer and save lineups, I'll show you what that page does. So go ahead and save this one. Go to the contest here. And if I hit randomize, it actually selects those 2 lineups, paste it over here in the contest that you're in. You have to do this manual work. You have to copy this over and paste it in there. And if I keep hitting randomize, you can see Streelman's on top, now Streelman's on the bottom. Like, it will randomize. And if I make another lineup, run the optimizer, save it. Now I have 3 lineups there. If I go to the contest page, hit that randomize button, now the 3 show up. And for me, I don't necessarily like to place lineups here. I kind of, it's the superstitious part in all of us. I feel like if I select a lineup and put it, to any of these lineups, I'm not going to win those lineups. So I rather something optimize, and all I'm really looking at is the last golfer. If I think there's potential that one of these guys, personally, I'm waiting to find Ryan Palmer. So I'll keep hitting randomize until I get that. But obviously you can see I had a lot of contests. I had all unique lineups here, copied and pasted them over, and then just hit randomize a bunch of times. I created this for myself to see how many lineups that I had with any of these golfers in it in the top 16, I think. I think it was like from here up. I wanted to see how many. Usually I'll keep hitting randomize until I see 1 for each of them. But yeah, that's how I do it. And it's available to you guys. Obviously, if you follow the instructions I gave. I was trying to figure out if I could get to the optimal lineup by locking in JT and Bryson. And I halfway through it, I found out that somehow the numbers got mixed up, like the metric. So it wasn't even giving me the proper information that I wanted. So either way, I'm going to continue working on it. But if you do want it, obviously follow those instructions. But yeah, 1 hour and 8 minutes. Appreciate you guys watching all the way up to now. If you could, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.